Building an area of a theme park that is supposed to represent the future comes with a massive caveat, and that's that the future is always changing. And with that, Tomorrowland always has to change in order to remain futuristic. To get a better understanding of some of the changes that need to take place, let us first go over a brief history of Tomorrowland. 1955. Tomorrowland is among the 5 areas in Disneyland on its opening day, the other 4 of course being Main Street USA, Frontierland, Fantasyland, and Adventureland. Tomorrowland is set to represent the future year of 1986 with attractions such as Autopia, the Monsanto Hall of Chemistry, the Dutch Boy Paint Gallery, Circarama, and the TWA-sponsored Rocket to the Moon. The first major changes would come just a year later with the addition of the Skyway, which was an aerial gondola that served as a pretty cool observation attraction, as well as a mode of transportation to the Fantasyland Skyway station. A year later, the Monsanto House of the Future was added, which was basically a cool-looking Minecraft modern house that showcased modern and futuristic home appliances, such as the first microwave oven, believe it or not. In 1958, a stop for the Disneyland Railroad would be added, and the Disneyland monorail was added just a year later. This was actually pretty futuristic at the time. You see, the Disneyland monorail would actually be the first daily operating monorail in the Western Hemisphere. It also looked really futuristic. A lot of the other monorails at the time just looked like regular trains, but with more instructions. At first, the monorail was really just an observation ride that looped around Tomorrowland. But in 1961, the track would be extended, and a stop at the Disneyland Hotel would be added, making the monorail an official mode of transportation. A lot of big changes to the area came in 1967, when a lot of the buildings were demolished and rebuilt, looking a bit more futuristic. The Adventure Through Inner Space attraction was added, which was a Haunted Mansion-esque Omnimover ride through a tour of snowflakes at the level of atoms and molecules. They also added the Carousel of Progress, which was exactly what it sounds like, a giant carousel ride showing guests progress of the world. They also added the Flight to the Moon attraction, as well as the infamous People Mover. Basically, it was an elevated train ride that took you around Tomorrowland, but it would also travel through a few of the show buildings, allowing patrons to look down into other attractions and shops. Another big change in 1967 was the addition of the rocket jets. Now imagine the Astro Orbiter that we see today, and make it 3 stories taller, and you have the rocket jets. Pretty crazy. A few more big changes came in the mid-1970s. The Carousel of Progress, it wasn't doing too well. So the Imagineers decided to ship it off to Florida Disney World and replace it with America Sings, which was a musical show featuring 114 audio animatronics. They would also change Flight to the Moon to Mission of Mars, as by the 70s we had already flown to the moon. In 1977, my personal favorite Disneyland ride, Space Mountain, was introduced, along with the Space Stage, which was a big ol' outdoor amphitheater similar to the one you see in Fantasyland today. This year also saw the addition of another one of my favorite attractions in Tomorrowland, Starcade, baby. In 1986, the Captain EO attraction would replace the Space Stage, turning it into the large indoor theater that you see today. And the infamous Star Tours would replace Adventure Through Inner Space. And then the decline came. When Tomorrowland was first built, it was supposed to represent the future year of 1986. Well, 1986 came, and in 1993, the Imagineers decided that some changes would need to be made. The plan was Tomorrowland 2055, and the area would mostly close in 1995 for construction. The remodel brought some good changes, and a whole bunch of, well, mistakes. You see, the idea was to create a sort of retro future, kind of steampunk and whatnot. The goal was to have a Tomorrowland that could be futuristic while also staying in the past in order to eliminate the constant need for update. So, first order of business was to repaint the gorgeous blue, white, and silver Tomorrowland more of a bronze and copper shade. I mean, this wasn't exactly a deal breaker, but I mean, it rendered Space Mountain down pretty bad. One big event that happened just before the 1995 makeover was the closing of the Skyway in order to reduce operating costs, as well as remove the need for repairs. Another big change was the addition of the rocket rods, which would replace the People Mover. I understand this change a little bit, as being slow-paced, the People Mover had a few incidents of people trying to jump in between the trains and getting smushed, as well as people just falling off of it. And I mean, if you look at the track, there is no railing in a lot of the places. So they replaced it with a much faster-paced ride with seatbelts. With this, there is less temptation to try to hop off of it while it was moving, being so much faster, kind of like how nobody aims to hop off Big Thunder Mountain Railroad while it's moving. This change, however, was quite short-lived, as after only 2 years, the ride would shut down indefinitely due to intractable mechanical issues. From that point on, the People Mover / Rocket Rod's track would be abandoned and would have the express purpose of taking up space. More on that later. Perhaps the biggest change of this remodel was the removal of the rocket jets. Fear not, however, for they did introduce a new type of rocket ride in the form of the Astro Orbiter at the front entrance. Assuming the previous location of the rocket jets was the Observatron. Personally, I believe that the Observatron was the result of the Imagineers just not really knowing what to do with that area, as the Observatron isn't actually even a ride, it just kind of sits there and looks cool. When it first opened, at certain times of the day, its arms would open up and spin around and play futuristic music. Now don't get me wrong, it looks awesome and super futuristic. Never actually got to experience this in person, however, because they stopped doing it. Today, the Observatron sits there and does, well, nothing. Going back to 1995, Circarama, now CircleVision 360, was removed, and a queue for the rocket rods took its place. Mission to Mars would be replaced by Red Rocket's Pizza Port, and Captain EO would be replaced by Honey, I Shrunk the Audience. The upper level of the Starcade was closed for some reason and never reopened, and the America Sings attraction would be replaced by Innoventions, which was basically a big convention center that showcased new technologies. I will say, Innoventions was pretty cool, and it was very futuristic. In 2003, Space Mountain would close for a whopping 2 years. The reason? Well, the track had been discovered to be unstable, and was replaced entirely with a new track on the same plan. The Imagineers also took this time to restore Space Mountain to its original, beautiful, white color scheme. This brings us to 2005, and after the Rocket Rods attraction had closed, the queue was turned into the Buzz Lightyear's Astro Blasters attraction. 2005 was also the 50th anniversary for Disneyland, and most of Tomorrowland was restored to its original glorious blue, white, and silver paint scheme. Some things still kept the 1998 color, with the biggest one being the Astro Orbiter right up until 2009, when it was given a new paint scheme to match the rest of the land. In 2010, Honey, I Shrunk the Audience was replaced by a reboot of the Captain EO attraction following the death of Michael Jackson, God rest his soul. This was also the year that Star Tours was replaced by Star Tours The Adventures Continue, featuring new characters and new Star Wars locations in a 3D experience. In 2014, the Captain EO attraction closed, and the theater was used to promote various new movies such as Guardians of the Galaxy and Big Hero 6. A year later, Innoventions closed and became the Tomorrowland Expo Center. The first floor would house the Star Wars launch bay, featuring a character meet and greet, along with exhibits showing various movie props and promotions for upcoming Star Wars movies. The upper floor hosts the Superhero HQ, which is a Marvel character meet and greet. Another thing that closed in 2015, sadly, was the Starcade. In 2018, the upper level of the Starcade became an extension of the queue of Space Mountain. Right after the Starcade closed, the bottom level was used a couple of times to promote upcoming Disney movies, but was eventually turned into an overflow area for Star Trader merchandise. This wasn't too bad, because as you can see in this picture, a few of the arcade cabinets were brought back, and you could still technically call it the Starcade. And then more recently, they decided to turn the bottom level of the Starcade into a venue for private events like weddings. In 2016, following the release of Star Wars The Force Awakens, the Season of the Force update was added to Tomorrowland. This yielded a lot of Star Wars themed changes, such as new Force Awakens locations in the Star Tours ride, but most notably, the retheming of Space Mountain to Hyperspace Mountain. A lot of these changes were short-lived because of the addition of Star Wars Land. Soon after, Hyperspace Mountain was restored to Space Mountain. Now this brings us to 2019, with the most recent change being to the entrance, wherein the quote-unquote French fry rocks were removed to improve crowd flow through the widening of the walkways. The removal of these rocks was also a part of an ongoing project called the Stardust Beautification Project, something like that. I understand why they made this change, but I'm gonna miss those rocks. I mean, they kind of gave off a sort of extraterrestrial vibe. I don't know, maybe they would be the kind of rocks you'd see on Mars or something. And that brings us to the present. I left out a few things, but you guys should now have a pretty good understanding of the history of Tomorrowland. You'll probably notice a pattern with the last few years at Tomorrowland. Over the years, the futuristic and magical feeling of Tomorrowland has gradually begun to deteriorate, or more Walt Disney's original vision for a bright future and of Tomorrowland. At the moment, Tomorrowland is in a bit of a transitional period. Now this is evident when you take into account certain factors such as the opening of themed lands such as Star Wars Land and Marvel Land, wherein certain Tomorrowland attractions may be a bit more appropriate if placed there. There's also the ever-increasing presence of unfitting attractions in general, as well as the presence of attractions that give off the vibe that they were built because the Imagineers did not know what to do with that area. At the moment, most of those unfitting attractions come in the form of the countless Disney property promotions that one could say have littered Tomorrowland. The Star Wars Launch Bay and Marvel Superhero HQ are definitely big ones, as well as the fact that the Magic Eye Theater and the Starcade have both been used countless times over the past 7 years to promote upcoming Disney and Marvel movies. One massive factor is the rate of new attractions coming in being disproportionate to the rate of old attractions closing. This results in a big pile of abandoned attractions, which can really take away from the overall purpose and beauty of Tomorrowland, as well as leave a bad impression on a new guest, or just leave them really confused. An example of this is the Starcade. Now granted, the Starcade isn't abandoned, but it is used as a private venue these days and is walled off from the general public, so unless you're getting married or you have a business conference there, it's not an attraction. The thing is, the venue is referred to as the Starcade venue, so they didn't have to take the Starcade sign down, which will leave cultured and nostalgic patrons like myself a reminder of a great attraction that used to be there, as well as leave a new or uninformed guests wondering, where's the arcade? So, let's go over some of my ideas and propositions that could potentially provide solutions for a lot of these problems. Okay, so as we've gone over before, one of the biggest causes for Tomorrowland losing that futuristic feeling, or at least Walt Disney's original vision, is that big pile of unused and or abandoned attractions. So, to start off, let's go over some of the potential uses for these attractions. Let's start off with the biggest of all of them, the People Mover / Rocket Rods track. Now, there's a People Mover at Walt Disney World in Florida, so you guys got it to work somehow. One of the biggest problems with the one that was here at Disneyland was people falling off of it or just trying to get off of it and getting hit by the oncoming trains. What's a good way that we can fix this? Why not put a glass dome around the track? That'll at least eliminate the possibility of people falling off of it. Inside the glass dome, you could put things like security cameras to catch when people try to get off the train, or, and this one is a little bit far-fetched, you could have sensors that detect weight shifts caused by people trying to get off the train, and when one of those weight shifts happens, the ride comes to a stop. All that glass and cameras is pretty expensive and probably hard to install though, so if that doesn't work, maybe just improve the railing? And by improve the railing, in a lot of places that means just add a railing. I mean, the People Mover didn't even have seatbelts back then, so you were basically begging people to fall off of it. I mean, come on. Even with the railing, you could still have the camera idea. Heck, you guys could even slap a roof on top of it, kind of like the way you did with the one at Disney World. In some of the rooms with projections and screens that used to be the Super Speed Tunnel or the Tron room, you could always play videos of a CGI Tomorrowland in the background to make it look like you're actually passing through a massive futuristic city. They did something similar to this with the Universal Studios trams in the Fast and Furious rooms. My next and final idea for the track is a bit more far-fetched and kind of stupid, to be honest, but one thing you guys could do with the track would be to turn the T-shaped part of the track leading from the Observatron to the Astro Orbiter at the entrance into a walkway for guests, maybe even a viewing area for the fireworks show. This could also potentially serve as a purpose for the level below the Observatron that used to be a loading area for the People Mover and later the Rocket Rods attractions. Now, let's talk about the Magic Eye Theater. If you guys already forgot about that one, I don't really blame you. You don't really hear that many people referring to it as that, but it is the big indoor theater that formerly housed the Captain EO attractions and Honey, I Shrunk the Audience. The thing is, this attraction isn't really that abandoned. It's just been used a lot less lately, and when it has had a purpose, it's pretty much only been used to play trailers for upcoming Disney or Marvel movies. It's definitely not being used to its fullest potential. The thing is, if the Imagineers really wanted to, if they were willing to put in the time, effort, and money, the Magic Eye Theater is a massive piece of real estate, and honestly, they could probably just turn it into a whole nother ride. The thing is, they don't really need to. So one thing they could do is just play movies like Star Wars in it for free at certain times for those guests just trying to kill time. You guys brought back the Captain EO attraction, you could also always just bring back the Honey, I Shrunk the Audience attraction. Let's talk about the Tomorrowland Expo Center for a bit. This building used to house attractions like the Carousel of Progress, America Sings, and most recently, Innoventions. Today, it's called the Tomorrowland Expo Center and has the Star Wars launch bay on the first floor and the Marvel Superhero HQ on the second floor. If I'm going to be 100% honest with you guys, I don't see the point in either of these attractions. For starters, they each have their own themed lands respectively, with Star Wars Land on the other side of Disneyland and the Avengers Campus just a few hundred yards away at Disney California Adventure. Star Wars Launch Bay I kind of get, mostly because of its status as more of a behind-the-scenes attraction, showing off various movie props and whatnot, while Star Wars Land is more of an immersive experience to make you feel like you're actually in Star Wars. Unless they're going to make attractions based on the inventions of Tony Stark, the Marvel Superhero HQ is not really that fitting with Tomorrowland, and to a broader extent, Disneyland. I would say that the Superhero HQ is a perfect attraction for Disney California Adventure. You can tell me that Disney bought Marvel as much as you want. Having Marvel attractions at Disneyland is a bit like having a theme park with a theme entirely based on pasta. And then in the spaghetti section of Pasta Land, we've got an attraction that's entirely based on Mountain Dew. I have absolutely nothing against Marvel. But does it belong at Disneyland? That's why I say it's perfect for California Adventure, an area that's not necessarily supposed to be limited to Disney stuff, especially with areas like the Hollywood Studios attractions. Let's talk about Starcade for a bit. As I said earlier, the Starcade is not technically an abandoned attraction, mainly because it has been converted into the Starcade venue. However, it is a private area that is walled off from guests. I'd like to start by giving credit where credit is due. The Disney Imagineers actually did decide to do something with this area instead of just abandoning it like a few of the other attractions in Tomorrowland. However, I feel that the addition of this venue was a bit of a missed opportunity, as if you think about it, they probably could have put a way cooler attraction in its place. In its final days, Starcade was still awesome, but over the years, the location had definitely become increasingly more run down. Especially considering the fact that the moving sidewalk that led up to the top floor had been fenced off with a few arcade cabinets blocking it, as well as the fact that the top floor had just been closed off entirely, because of the repurposing of the upper floor to include an extension of the Space Mountain queue. That moving sidewalk has been removed. In theory, if they wanted to bring back Starcade, it would be smaller, but they could definitely restore it to its original glory. The thing is, arcades aren't exactly futuristic anymore, which I would imagine was included among the reasons that the Imagineers had in mind when they closed the Starcade. Well, here's the thing. If you've spent any time inside the Tomorrowland Expo Center, you'll notice that there are multiple stations that include iPads and Xboxes, showcasing various new Star Wars games, new consoles, new mobile games. Well, with this in mind, you could take the Starcade and modernize it to include modern gaming interfaces, as well as promote upcoming ones to slightly restore that futuristic aspect. Okay, so now that we've gone over some of the big and far-fetched ideas, let's go over some of the more minor, cosmetic, and more plausible changes that could definitely better Tomorrowland. First things first, let's talk about the Astro Orbiter. Now, when the Astro Orbiter first opened, when the rockets would orbit the tower, so would the planetary objects that you see, except each of these stars and planets would rotate and spin independently, with some even rotating in different directions or at a different pitch. Now, this looked incredible, and if you look at some of the old footage combined with other extinct attractions such as the rocket rods going by, I mean, just look at that. That looks awesome. That looks like a pretty awesome Tomorrowland experience. The Astro Orbiter did this for a pretty long time, even after it got repainted to match the rest of Tomorrowland in 2009. Somewhere along the way, they decided to stop this practice, and all of the planets would rotate in unison with the tower whenever the rockets spun. This was likely due to mechanical issues. Whatever, it still looks pretty cool. Today, the damn thing barely even spins. And on the occasion that you happen to catch the tower rotating, it rotates at a much slower speed than the rockets do, and it just looks weird. Imagineers of Disneyland, can you please bring back the rotatey, spinny whatchamacallits? Another minor change. The Observatron has been around for almost 30 years now, and you guys don't really seem to have any intention of turning it back into a ride. So, if you're not going to do anything with it, at least make it open up and play music like it used to back in the day. You guys seem to like hooking up cool spotlights to it at night. Maybe hook up a big spotlight to the thing at the top and have it open up at night and put on a cool light show during the fireworks display or something like that. If it comes down to operating costs, maybe just have it do its thing on the weekends. I don't know. Just do something with it. Don't just abandon it. Tomorrowland has almost always had something to do with transportation. For a while, the slogan of the land was literally "the world on the move." Now, this is mostly because of the fascination with transportation that Walt Disney had. We've got rides like Autopia, Rocket to the Moon, Submarine Voyage, the Monorail, the Disneyland Railroad, the short-lived Viewliner, the People Mover, Rocket Rod, Skyway, Rocket Jets. The list goes on. What a lot of people don't notice is how it wasn't only the rides that were about transportation, but even the wait queues had cool and futuristic ways of getting you to the ride. Space Mountain had the moving sidewalk, the Rocket Jets used to have a NASA-style elevator leading up to them, the Starcade also had a moving sidewalk leading to the upper level. You can even find examples of it in other lands, such as the stretching room in the Haunted Mansion. The sad thing is that today a lot of that has left Tomorrowland, with Space Mountain's moving sidewalk being removed in favor of concrete ramps, Starcade's moving sidewalk also being removed, and the Rocket Jets just not existing anymore. It would be cool if they at least brought back a little bit of this. I mean, Space Mountain's queue definitely has enough space for a moving sidewalk or escalator. You could even add one at the queue to the Disneyland monorail. Tomorrowland at the moment is a bit of a potpourri, with a bunch of attractions promoting various Disney properties, a couple of futuristic rides, some old rides, and then a few abandoned buildings. Because of this, Tomorrowland has gradually begun to steer away from its original purpose of being a themed land representing the world of tomorrow. Or rather, Walt Disney's original vision of a bright future. Tomorrowland was built to show people what the future could be in terms of science, technology, transportation, and more. Walt Disney literally hired NASA employees and astrophysicists to help him out when he was designing the land. In Walt Disney's dedication on Disneyland's opening day, he stated that Tomorrowland would be a vista into a world of wondrous ideas signifying man's achievements, a step into the future with predictions of constructive things to come. Tomorrow offers new frontiers in science, adventure, and ideas, the atomic age, the challenge of outer space, and the hope for a peaceful and united world. Now, we still have a little bit of that today. The thing is, all of the other attractions at Tomorrowland are more promotions for other Disney properties, such as Star Wars and Marvel, which tend to depict the future as more of an all-out war between humanity and whatever it might be, whether that is a Nazi-like galactic empire or a giant convoluted amalgamation of space aliens and lore. AKA, not the purpose of Tomorrowland. The other thing is, there are other Disney parks that have managed to pretty much nail Walt Disney's vision. Take Epcot in Walt Disney World, for example, the experimental prototype community of tomorrow. This park is a very good representation of Walt's vision, including countless visions for the future, with multiple attractions and pavilions such as Spaceship Earth, Imagination, Journey into Imagination with Figment, Mission Space, Space 220, Test Track. Do you see where I'm going with this? Granted, the Florida Disney parks have infinitely more space than Anaheim Disney, but even still, we had something like this at Disneyland at one point. just on a smaller scale. It'd be pretty hard to remove themed attractions such as Star Tours that have already mostly cemented themselves as a Tomorrowland ride, but you could always move things like Star Wars Launch Bay and the Superhero HQ to other parts of the park, or even better, California Adventure, and maybe replace them with either a new futuristic ride, such as one of those extinct attractions that I listed a second ago. You'll also have to replace or reanimate a lot of those abandoned attractions. Anyway guys, those were some of the ideas that I have to improve Disneyland's Tomorrowland. With all that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys could subscribe to the channel, that would be absolutely amazing, or even consider subscribing to some of my other channels where I post either YouTube shorts or video game tutorials. Anyway guys, my time is up, so hopefully I will see you in the next video. A slightly extended version of this video is also available on my main channel, Pillowy Flunky9. There, I mostly stream video games with my friends, as well as occasionally upload video game reviews, gameplay videos, and YouTube shorts. So if any of you guys are interested in that sort of thing, be sure to check it out. This is a brand new channel that I've started, and here I will only be posting videos related to Disneyland. Anyway guys, thank you for watching.